Well, here we are again. And as I mentioned, at least on my Facebook page a few days ago, there is a specific rant that I want to deliver today. Right now, my inner dragon is wearing his muzzle. But he has been known to chew through the muzzle, so you've been warned. I want to begin by saying that I happened to watch 60 Minutes this past Sunday, and their lead story was about the crisis in Yemen. Scott Pelley was too polite to mention the G word. I'm not that polite, so I will. The G word is genocide. What is happening in Yemen right now is nothing less than genocide, perpetrated and executed by the government of Saudi Arabia, and aided and abetted in no small degree by our own genocidal maniac, Donald Trump. The history of animosity and open warfare between the Sunni sect and the Shia sect of Islam goes back over 1,200 years. There is much that I could say about that. There are at least 5 history lectures that I could give on that topic. But I won't. Not now. Not today. Because I want to make a different point. I want to hone my dagger against that hardest of all substances that composes Donald Trump's heart. Donald Trump may not be guilty directly and immediately of genocide against the Yemeni people, but his proxy is the Saudis. The Saudis are not the jovial, amiable, camel-driving, friendly people that they have led us all to believe they are for so many years. Saudi Arabia is the capital of Wahhabism, a version, a corruption of Islam, a corruption of the Quran that preaches hatred and jihad against all opposition. I would point out just briefly that most of the 9/11 hijackers came from Saudi Arabia. Osama bin Laden was a distant relative of the Saudi royal family. And because of that, it took a different president, Barack Obama, to finally hunt down Osama bin Laden and have him killed. Because George Bush and the Bush family are friends of the Saudi royal family, and they were not about to offend their friends by killing a distant relative. Well, that is just one of the topics, one of the history lectures I could give, but I'm not going to do that right now. What I am going to do is accuse Donald Trump openly and blatantly of genocide by proxy. The Saudis have had a thing about the Iranians for forever, actually. And so, because in Yemen, most of the population is Sunni, and the minority is Shia. The Iranians, of course, are doing what they can get away with, for supporting their allies, the Shia in Yemen. The Saudis, who basically own the region, who own the land, in essence, are doing their utmost to prevent any aid from coming to the Shia, and they are using their ancestral animosity towards the Shia as an excuse. And Donald Trump is just fine with that. Because the Saudis signed a $980 billion weapons contract with U.S. military providers, U.S. defense contractors, and all that money comes to the United States. The United States is trading on genocide, which is to say the United States government and the American defense industry by extension, is trading on genocide. This is not a new problem in Yemen. This has been going on for over 3 years, and there is no fucking way that Donald Trump could not possibly have known about it. He would have been briefed about this before he even took the oath of office. It's part of the president's brief. In this case, probably part of the president's weekly brief, if not his daily brief. We all have a pretty good idea by now of what goes into the president's daily brief. We all know what the president, or most of us know, what the president knows or should know. Donald Trump cannot say, truthfully, he didn't know, he wasn't aware. Bullshit. That is a bald-faced lie, as bald-faced a lie as any that he's ever told. Any. I hold Donald Trump responsible, by extension, for the genocide in Yemen. I hold Donald Trump responsible for the deaths of thousands of people, and most of them children. Children starving to death, malnourished, not getting proper food and medical care. The Saudis say, oh, we're delivering that. We are not cruel. We are not vicious. We are not savages. The hell they aren't. They have public beheadings periodically. What civilized people does that? Even the Iranians aren't that vicious. Even the Iranians are a bit more civilized than that. I think the United States government, which is to say, in the person of Donald Trump, is backing the wrong horse here. But again, that is another history lecture that I could give, but I won't. I want to basically drive home the point to all of you who are watching who may not be aware of the history between the United States, Saudi Arabia, and Iran, that this is not new. This whole thing in Yemen didn't just erupt out of a vacuum. It is the current crisis in an ongoing rivalry, a political rivalry, a theological rivalry between two adversarial sects of Islam and the United States, which is trying to back whichever side it thinks is going to be the winner. And in the meantime, thousands of people will die. Most of those people are children. And Donald Trump doesn't care, because blood is blood, and anybody's blood will do, and there's no such thing as not enough of it. A body count is the imprimatur of a tyrant and a dictator, and the higher the body count, the better, as far as a dictator is concerned. You think Saddam Hussein cared about body counts? You think Mao Zedong cared about body counts? You think Bashar al-Assad cares about body counts? And speaking of Bashar al-Assad, have we all forgotten this past April when the President of the United States, the Commander-in-Chief, ordered, well, no, he didn't actually order the Navy to waste 59 cruise missiles, only to destroy a hangar and crater a runway? He says he did it to prevent genocide in Syria. Bull fucking shit. He did it because he wanted to demonstrate that he had some moral scruple. His moral scruples aren't even as long as his credentials. So where's Donald Trump's outrage now? He doesn't have any, because he doesn't care, because he's an idiot, because he's a moron, because he does not fucking care about human life, American, Yemeni, or anybody's. It's all about the blood. It's all about the money. How much money can be made killing people? That's what matters to Donald Trump. I'm going to go off on a slight tangent. I'm going to say that if I were the president right now, instead of Donald Trump, I would be using whatever leverage, political or economic or diplomatic leverage I had with the Saudi government to get them to call off the blockade and be as good as their word and deliver food and medical supplies to the people. I would prevail I would twist a few arms and maybe a few beards to get them to be the mediator between the rivalry in Yemen between the Sunni and the Shia ethnic populations. They could do a lot of good for their kingdom. They could do a lot of good for the people of Yemen. They could do a lot of good for their standing in the world if they became peacemakers rather than war makers. But no, the Saudis don't want to do that. Donald Trump doesn't want to do that because they don't care. Donald Trump doesn't care, and the Saudis don't care either, frankly. If I were president, I would fully staff the State Department. All those empty desks would have somebody sitting behind them, and the person sitting behind them would be a seasoned, experienced diplomat. And we would put pressure on the Saudi government, on the Iranian government, on the Yemeni government to find a solution, to negotiate a solution so that thousands of people are not displaced and so that thousands of children don't die every month. Because it's about the children. In case you haven't figured out right by now, I have a thing about children. I have a thing about people who abuse children, whether they're infants or teenage girls. Well, my dragon has chewed through his muzzle, so I'm going to stop now.